All right, today on The Breakthrough Effect, I'm talking with my good friend, Craig Siegel, a man who walked away from Wall Street not because he failed, but because his soul was craving more. When comfort became his cage, Craig chose reinvention. Now, as the founder of CLS and one of the most sought-after transformational coaches, Craig has mastered the art of turning personal breakthroughs into global movements. His mantra, the riskiest thing that you can do is play it safe. From running marathons to being a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author, no big deal, to TEDx speaker, to building one of the most electric communities in personal development, Craig is living proof that reinvention isn't just possible, it's necessary if you want to play at the highest level. Get ready for a breakthrough conversation that will challenge everything that you think you know about risk, purpose, and the hidden forces that keep extraordinary people playing small. Please welcome the juggernaut himself, my soul brother, Craig Siegel. Thanks for joining.
I love you. I have so much more appreciation for those intros now. I always wanted to be on the other side of one of those.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was my goal, was to bring that for you, so that was for you.
That's a lot of build-up. I got to live up to that.
Before we get started, in all seriousness, I do want to thank you. I want to honor you. I want to commend you and just appreciate you in front of my audience on this podcast, but also the live audience here. Thank you so much for what you've done in the voice in my ear. The ROI that I've had with our relationship transcends money, so I'm so thankful, and I want to give you gratitude today.
Thank you, brother. I love you.
Yeah. Let's get started. You say the riskiest thing that you can do is play small. How does a person even know that they're playing small? And if they think they are, what should they do about it?
Well, first of all, this just in, playing small is canceled. Everybody got that memo, right? You know if you're playing small if you're not uncomfortable, right? So I run marathons. I have a half marathon this Saturday morning in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Half. Shout out to Brooklyn. If I'm training for a full marathon, 26.2 miles per se, right? If that's the end goal, then going out to run 3 miles is probably not going to make me very uncomfortable, not right? So that would be playing small compared to my big vision. Now, if it's part of the training plan, and like on Tuesdays I have to do 3 miles and I'm going to get up to 10, that's a different story. But unless you're getting in an arena that makes you like a little bit anxious and nervous, which by the way, we should be feeling every single day. Anyone feel anxious and nervous to come today? Beautiful. Yeah. So if you're not feeling that, that's direct feedback that you're playing it way too safe. Right? So for example, last thing I'll say is this. If this event was gonna be for 15 people, then I would be playing small. Right? I can invite 15 people on my floor, my building. That's not so much of a challenge. But to play a little bit bigger, to consider, can I do this, and then overcome that, that's a good sign, right? So the more uncomfortable you're willing to get, the bigger the potential outcome.
I agree with you. I've experienced that in real time. That's a hard sell for a lot of people because it feels like stress. It feels like pressure. You have a really good way of kind of being able to articulate the difference between those. Like, what is the difference between I'm actually going a direction, feeling uncomfortable, and I'm going like off the deep end and I shouldn't go here? Like the difference between logic and chasing a dream, so to speak.
I think there's a big difference between pressure and stress. I think that pressure can be utilized as a portal for expansion if you convert it correctly. Stress kills, right? So anytime you begin to play bigger, let's just say you're going to step into something that maybe you haven't done before, so it's unfamiliar, you're probably going to feel pressure, right? Let's just say, so right here, I was putting together this event, wanted to fill the room, I felt a little pressure, but that's a good thing because I know I have to expand, right? So a lot of people, when they begin to feel pressure, they like to shrink the vision. Absolutely not. Expand yourself to be a match for the vision.
Yeah.
So absolutely feel that pressure, lean into it. It's typically a good sign you're on the cusp of a new level. Now, like I said, there's a big difference. So if you're feeling stressed out, more like burnt out of alignment like I did in my previous career, you have to pay attention to that too.
Yeah.
Whole different conversation. You can pay attention to how the body feels and so forth. But big difference between good, healthy pressure, which is a portal, and stress.
I actually just posted about this yesterday, even flying out here. Excited, but also a little, I don't want to say scared, but you can feel like this, the nerves are going just a little bit. I have found in my life that I chased comfort all the time. So I always wanted my emotions to be just chill. Like, I don't want to rock the boat. I never want to feel that. Now I'm learning that growth and expansion does chase that feeling of uncomfortable. I tell people, I'm like, sometimes like my emotion should be split, like 50% excited, but 50% like, holy crap, what are we doing, right?
100%.
What's interesting about that is that there's a paradox. When you feel really comfortable, you feel safe, but that's not actually true. How would you articulate that?
You mentioned that I love to say the riskiest thing we could do is to play it safe, right? So I believe, through my studies of the wisdom of Kabbalah and so forth, that our soul is here to actually expand. So that's why if you find yourself in like a dead-end relationship or a dead-end job, you feel that feeling of your soul contracting. That's a terrible feeling. Has anyone experienced that before? It's not a very fun experience, right? And so that's an indication that although that might be quote unquote safe, you're actually dying, right? So when you're uncomfortable and you're expanding, that's a good feeling.
Yep.
As Dr. Leaf would probably say better than I would in her awesome accent, we everything has meaning based upon the meaning that we give it.
Right.
So what if we decided to connect the idea of feeling uncomfortable and pressure with a positive meaning, like, wow, I'm really flexing my muscles and growing.
Yep.
Instead of what we'd be conditioned to feel is that when we're growing and stretching, we feel stressed out. Like, where did that even come from? Right? So what if we just change the meaning we give to the feeling when we're feeling uncomfortable? Are we willing to get a little bit more patient sitting in the discomfort?
That's deep, right? So if you're feeling that right now, is the advice to like just keep stepping into that as long as it feels aligned, and or does ego come into play? I don't want to open up like another door here and go down a different route, but like where do those things kind of intersect? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Drop the bomb with the word ego. I think that the ego wants us to be born with all this potential and die with all this potential, right? It wants us to play small. And so the idea is, guys, is to get so uncomfortable each and every single day, because every time you're willing to put yourself in more uncomfortable situations, you expand your capacity to do it more and more and more, right? So if things are easy, how do you even know if you're good? But when things get tough and you have an opportunity to train and to get better, to build resilience, to expand your capacity, that's really how you grow. So kind of a long-winded answer, but I would encourage everybody to start looking and seeking out, like a lunatic, the uncomfortable situations in life, because that's where the portal to expansion is.
Yeah, I love that. You talk about the like the 1% world. We live in the 1% world, and there's like 99 left out there. How do you even begin to explain to somebody what is actually there that they don't see, that can get them to see the untapped potential that's right in front of them?
This is such a big question, and I would humbly say in this room, I'm probably not even the most qualified to answer this, because my Kabbalah teacher's here, but from my studies, the 1% world is all of this, the physical, right? Ego is connected to it. The 99% is what's unseen and you can't really see. That's where all the miracles are manifested, and they're brought here. But most people are operating out of a system where they think that everything that's happening is really just this. So they're the effect, that all the consequences, poor me or victim mentality, anything that's happening is basically controlling them, which is, like I said, it's only 1% of what's actually happening.
Yeah. I like that. And so, again, we've learned today that like your mind has such power, you know, like where that is the 99% is your mind. And so Dr. Caroline Leaf was talking about this morning at this event. I thought it was fantastic, by the way. But she's like, that's what controls your brain. That's what controls your body. You could argue that like this is what controls your outcomes as well. You know, why are people so led to believe that they don't have this potential? Like, just in your opinion of working with people, how come? I mean, there's ego into play, but like, how come we're groomed to just not think this way?
Where do I begin? How much time do we have for this one? Right, because like I said earlier when we kicked off today, if you think about just the definition of consciousness, it's the awareness of who we really are, as opposed to who we've been taught or we think we are. And so everybody's definition of who they are is limited. And now you're asking me why. Life, parents, society, conditioning, television, social media, you name it, the list goes on. But we're taught that we're not unlimited. And as a result, we start cultivating these negative beliefs that limit us as opposed to empower us. And so everybody has them. The people that I've had the luxury and honor of being around that are the most powerful, and on our podcast we've interviewed billionaires. I used to think they were the most powerful. Now I know the people that are the most spiritual and have the highest consciousness are the most powerful. They can snap their fingers and make $1 billion in a second. They have such an elevated level of consciousness that they understand how this works, that the ego doesn't even have air up there.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea is, guys, and I want to let Jared do his thing, but is to take time to think about where am I limiting myself? And to have that level of awareness and even take inventory of it, then we can begin to do something about it.
Name a time where, because you didn't always think this way, I'm guessing, and I know your story, so this isn't the way it's always been with Craig. So like name a time when where you had a shift in a truth about yourself. I love your definition of consciousness, by the way. It's like it's a set of beliefs that you believe to be true about you, right? So like, can you identify a time where you made a shift and you literally like saw your reality change?
So, I don't know if I should go into this right now. Do you guys want to go deep or not really?
Yes.
Okay. So, there's this idea of tithing, right? Anybody know what tithing is? Maybe we have different definitions and so forth. But the idea is that getting rid of 10% of the money that comes in to basically keep the circuitry going and the circulation and to keep the flow. Now that's hard to fathom. So basically, okay, so you're telling me get rid of 10% of what I'm making. That sounds very uncomfortable, and I'm expecting even more to come in. Actually, yes. But that was a limit. Like unless you really study some of this wisdom or quantum physics and understand that everything is energy, how do you know about this stuff, right? So that's why I say like, a little biased to the wisdom of Kabbalah, but if you're not doing that or studying quantum physics and stuff, then where are you? Because this is actually how the world works. Everything is energy.
Yeah. Well, like let me just preface. I agree with what you say, and I've got a couple of stories that back that, and I know what you're what you're thinking right now, as with my testimony. When you start to get into like I'm gonna give so I can receive. I don't know. I was raised in small town, Christianity, right? So it's like right off the bat, people are like, "Oh, that's prosperity gospel. That's wrong." But what you're doing is you're actually tapping into what I think you would say is a giving consciousness, which is another like cheat code, right? So explain what's happening in the spiritual.
Yeah.
What's happening when you decide to give, and whether we're talking about writing out a check or not, but like putting on a giving crown, a giving consciousness. What's happening at the soul level that's causing the shift in your own reality?
Can we just give it up for his questions today? Unbelievable. This is a game changer. And guys, he's asking me a lot of stuff in regards to spirituality. So I know so far today it's been a lot of practical. So some of the stuff you guys might be like, what the hell are they talking about? Or it might really speak to your soul and you say, give me more. I would just encourage you wherever you are is to just be a little open-minded. So most people are doing things subconsciously or maybe even consciously for the need to receive. I'm gonna do this so I can get that. I'm gonna do this and I'm expecting that. But nobody even really thinks about it unless you study spirituality. I just wanna come today and just give. No agenda. How can I pour into them? And from that consciousness, all of a sudden, things open up on the back end that are 100 times bigger than you probably had on the whiteboard. So every time you're doing something for a specific outcome, that would be some sort of agenda, right? And so a little bit of ego is tied into that. And as a result, I don't know how to say this to make it as accessible if you don't study the wisdom, but you're not really connected. There's a disconnection there. And so how many of us actually show up with the sole intent to just give to just pour into people, to just help. Very rarely. We're thinking about what's in it for us. But if you can do that, if you can make that shift in your consciousness, you'll see the magic start to begin. And I would just say this is stuff that you have to test out.
The first time I really tested that out with you in my ear, and I was doing a speaking engagement down in Disneyland, of all places, 2 days before the launch of my book.
Is Mickey Mouse there?
He did not show up. But I had you in my ear the whole week. We texted back and forth briefly that morning. It was a big deal because I was like 2 days away from launching my book. And you said this exact same thing. You're like, you show up, and he's like, your mindset is like, you are there to shine pure light. It's not about you. It's not about what you're wearing. It's not about how you look. And I've been speaking off and on for 10 years. And that was the first time I really walked into a speaking engagement with that mindset. Oof. And I will tell you, the connection that I made with the audience was so powerful. This is at a marketing conference for realtors, by the way. I cried, I think, 3 times on stage, and I had grown men crying on my shoulder out in the hallway afterwards. And I'm like, wow. And like that was like a confirmation to me. Like there's something so powerful in this. I think what we're talking about is like, how do you have breakthrough? How do I build a business? How do I have more? But what you're talking about here isn't that. It's about how can I give more? And as a byproduct, I end up not only getting what I want, I'm making the connection that my heart is longing for. Am I articulating that correctly?
Yes, and I think the biggest battle that we all face throughout this carnation, this lifetime, is this ego thing, overcoming the ego. And if you think about, does anybody here happen to know what the #1 fear in America is? You just call it out. Nailed it. Why is that? Why are people so concerned that what people are going to think about them when they're speaking? I can't imagine it's anything else, because if you genuinely didn't care what other people think, why would you be so afraid to speak, right? And so the ego is always involved in some capacity. So if you're so worried about, do I have food on my teeth? How am I going to look? Did someone get makeup on my shirt? Which they did, by the way. Then you're not really there to just be light and to help people. But when I said that to you, you forgot everything else, all the noise, and you just went there and say, how can I be a channel to bring these people, I know they're an assignment, how can I bring them closer to the light? And when you do that from that consciousness, you begin to experience the miraculous.
Yeah. Quick question on the ego.
Question on the ego.
We're going to breeze through this one in 20 seconds. Does the ego ever go away? And sub-question, do you want it to go away?
People talk about ego deaths. I think that different identities, right? So this whole thing about playing small, sometimes we're loyal to an identity that doesn't serve us anymore. To be able to get rid of that part of your ego would be a death. But ultimately, be flattered by your troubles, right? Tanya, is that in your book? Be flattered by your obstacles, because the more we would say the opponent, the ego is all over you, means that you have a lot of light to reveal.
Yeah.
And so it's a never-ending battle. But as you guys become equipped with these tools, you know how to constantly, proactively overcome it. And by doing that, you experience more blessings than if the ego wasn't there in the first place. So I think the ego is the biggest battle we'll ever face, and I think it's a lifelong transformation.
That's what makes a battle worthy to fight. Is to
worthy
have
opponent.
A worthy opponent, exactly. So that's been a big shift for me, because every time my ego showed up, I didn't even know how to articulate it, but I fought it, and I succumbed to it. And now when he shows up, I'm like, heck yeah, let's go, because now I'm on the right track. Now it's happening for me.
That's right.
It's actually a sign, not a stop sign. It's a signal, not a stop sign, as you say. We talked about one of the cheat codes being giving, putting on a giving consciousness. Another one you talk a lot about, certainty. I heard you say one time, and I stopped you on this one. I was like, wait, what? You said certainty creates faster than obsession. Certainty will create breakthrough faster than obsession. How do people change this mindset of like, I have to do, chase, to creating and becoming?
I said that? Unbelievable.
I take a lot of notes.
Unbelievable. Look, obsession, just to be clear, I used to play in this world about being obsessed. I used to take pride in it. Let me know if any of you guys relate to this. Hardest worker in the room, 4 a.m. club, grind. work yourself to the bone. But ultimately, being obsessed also it's like a cousin of having an attachment. You're obsessed to what? What is that?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think just waking up and flexing your certainty muscle that you trust. And if you're working within some of the universal laws that we're talking here today, then you have every reason to be certain in the not so obvious things coming to fruition. So this event, booked it, didn't know exactly how we'd fill it, but I had no choice, but I flexed certainty.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't obsessed because I think when you begin to get obsessed with things, and again, I know this is tricky because oftentimes we're taught to obsession is good. I just think that requires some sort of attachment. And so whatever you're obsessed with, even if you get it, somehow there's some sort of disconnect, or it won't be absolutely fulfilling like you thought it might be.
Yeah.
But to build certainty is useful for you in all areas of life forever. And I'm not so sure how healthy obsessions are.
Certainty is a place in my life where I've been able to really, really crank it up. You talk about it being a muscle. Again, when you look at it through this lens, then a challenge comes up where there's a lot of unknown. What an opportunity.
That's right.
What an opportunity now to flex that muscle. Is that how you view it, or is it something that you just have to decide, or is it something that takes practice over time, or all the above?
I love it. So putting yourself in uncomfortable situations where the end result is not so obvious is how you build certainty, right? So saying that you're certain that you can take a walk over there to the bathroom is not very impressive. You're not going to really grow from that because we know you can do that. But to put a big goal out there, even when you can't see exactly how the heck you're going to get there, but just know and have certainty that you're going to get there, now all of a sudden, things begin to come into your universe that you did not expect. That's how you build it.
Yeah, it's the confirmation after it happens. Faith is believing in something not yet seen, not yet, right? So do you have the audacity? I love that word audacity. Do you have the audacity to actually believe that what you're doing is not only the right path, but is going to come to fruition? And that's not doing that is literally the definition of playing small, because you'll never do anything. Because you always wait for the world to prove it to you, but then that doesn't take any faith. That doesn't take any certainty. And it takes that powerful law, so to speak, out of the equation.
Where's my man Jed? What do we say? What's your favorite line? Starts with the C.
Conviction.
Over. Starts with the V.
Yeah. Validation.
Conviction over validation.
Yeah.
Most people are waiting till it shows up to feel certain, to feel confident. Can you have the conviction right now that what you bring to the table is powerful, is worthy, and then it begins to appear, not the other way around?
We have limited time, so I'm just going to start going down the pecking list of these big topics.
By the way, you guys having fun?
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, fantastic. I love it. You say that we should desire it all, not just some, not just a fragment, right? I come from small town mid-America, right?
Yeah.
That idea is, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it's kind of like you have a small town mentality, like, listen, this is all I need, this is all that's practical. Use that dreaded P word, like, this is all I need or deserve. That's actually stifling your destiny. How can people give themselves permission to want it all?
Benjamin was just talking about this last night at the Kabbalah Center. And basically the concept is, if you desire less than all, you're wasting your time. You're missing your point. There's someone in this room whose name I won't mention unless she wants me to. We were having a great conversation. She was telling me a little bit about her goals and what she's looking to achieve, and she said a number. And I said, well, why that number? Why did you limit yourself to that? Right? So if there's unlimited of what we can build, co-create, and achieve, why do we set certain numbers? Is that because that's what we think is attainable? According to who? According to our consciousness? Okay, so instead of thinking about why don't we just raise our consciousness so that we could see more choices and solutions and problems and obstacles, right? So yeah, I mean, people just put limitations on what they believe to be possible for them, and that's what stops them from really growing.
Right, so again, if I'm hearing you right, you're actually preventing the vessel, I use that word vessel a lot, you're preventing the container from growing, which is ultimately the point of becoming. It's the way that you become it's not about what you can do, it's how much you can hold.
Yeah.
And again, if I'm hearing you right, I just want to articulate this in my own language. Then when we don't ask for it all, we are preventing the container from which we could hold more from growing to its max potential.
To put it in simple terms, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So how many of us limit ourselves every single day? Right? That's something that we're constantly looking to overcome and work on. Everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, if you can't grow if you keep putting a ceiling on what's possible for you. Mm-hmm. Right? So how willing would you be to continue to raise the ceiling? And instead of, like I said before, instead of shrinking the vision, expand your capacity.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say to those gurus that say, hey, make those big goals and you just shoot for the stars and it's very, very goal related? Are you anti-goal?
No, I would tell them to come to this event and hang out. I think goals are fantastic, right? Because you want to be intentional with your life. Mm-hmm. So you want to set a goal, but you don't want to be boxed in either.
There you go.
Right? You want to have a trajectory. You want to have a path.
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful. And also, goals generate desire. They excite you. I mean, I'll use a personal analogy. My brother's here, my brother Mark. Our dad is battling cancer. And he's no spring chicken. But when my dad was diagnosed, they were very pessimistic to him. We really didn't appreciate it. They underestimated his spirit. But my dad has such big goals and a zest and enthusiasm for life. He's really pumped about my brother's kids, my nephew and my niece. He's really pumped about what we're doing here. He has so much to live for that his goals generate so much desire.
Yeah.
So I would never say to someone in that position, don't have goals. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But you just don't want to box yourself in per se.
A saying or a cliche that gets thrown around a lot is like, fake it till you make it, right? Just fake it till you make it and you'll just figure it out. I'm on the fence about that one. I don't know if there's anything intrinsically valuable about just faking something, but if the faking it actually changes the inner being on how you think, act, and feel, that's where the power is, right? Where do you stand on that saying, fake it till you make it?
I just don't align with the word fake. Personally, it just rubs me the wrong way. I prefer that word conviction, right? So fake it till you make it. Like, in other words, if you don't have confidence, just fake it, come in here. I could see how that might be useful. But would you be willing to just exercise more conviction that when you do walk in that room, you have something to offer?
Yeah. That
just feels better to me because that's something you could ignite and awaken and activate. The whole fake it thing means it's not really yours.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, I can see how it, in the right context, it works, so to speak. Listening to Dr. Caroline Leaf this morning, where it's like, hey, if you can like engineer it in a pattern disrupt, it's not going to feel right away. So you're kind of faking it right away. But if you can do that enough over time, then all of a sudden it starts to change the inner man and inner woman. Then that's what does it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you knew this. I haven't always been a real positive guy.
I think I knew this.
Okay. But like my thought life was, I'm the type of guy where I have no problem going to sleep at night. It's staying asleep, right? Like the dreaded 3 a.m. Like we'll wake up no matter what. And then I'd have a bad thought. Negative thoughts, self-pity, bitterness, contempt. I had them all. Self-pity was the big one. The thought would not be taken captive, and I let it kind of roll around, right? And then by 4 a.m. I'm up. 5 o'clock I'm walking around my house. Hours still before anybody in my house gets up. So by the time that my wife and kids get up, I've already created the atmosphere in my home. You know what I mean? And misery loves misery, right? So it's like, I'm going to make sure everybody kind of knows where I stand, you know? Which was detrimental to my marriage and just not healthy, right? So a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? What's the opposite of bitterness, contempt, self-pity? Gratitude. When should I do this gratitude? In the morning, because that's when it's the worst. And so I went for my very first morning gratitude walk a couple of years ago. I walked around the section. We have sections in Minnesota. I don't know where you live, but we had a little section that we walk around. It takes 12 minutes. Baby. Yeah. And my neighbors thought I'd lost it because Jared's out there walking, talking to himself. But I literally just expressed gratitude, and I didn't feel it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, I was genuinely thankful, but it wasn't a feeling I had. So technically I kind of was faking it, you know what I'm saying? And you know what happened after that very first morning gratitude walk? Nothing. But I committed to it, right? I had the conviction, and I decided, So I kept doing it, and then pretty soon after 90, 180, 365 plus morning gratitude walks, now it's just a part of my being. You know what I mean? Now here in New York City, guess what I did this morning without even thinking of it? I just did it. First words out of my mouth. This is the best day of my life. I have no problems. The world's for me. My mind is going to be blowing today. I lack nothing. Now, that's genuine. That's not faking it, right? But it kind of took faking it for a while.
Fitness,
you know what I'm saying?
just like anything, like working it out.
Yeah, so I mean, I see both sides of this coin. I love it. Yeah.
Something just came through right now. I just wanted to share something real quick. If you guys could all write this down, I think it would be very helpful. I'm always, in all ways, greater than I think I am. Just came through. In case we forget who the hell we are once in a while. Remember, anytime you're not feeling your best, it's just some sort of limitation that with the elevated consciousness, we can disrupt. I'm always, in all ways, greater than I think I am. That works for you because now that is a part of you.
Amen.
Right? And so when you start something new that's not natural or not necessarily fun, depending upon why you're starting it, you have to convince yourself to stick it out.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think that's fake. I think you
Correct.
were into it.
Yes.
It took a little while to really love it.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, again, it goes back to the conviction, and the transformation is when it starts to change the inner being. That's when now you start changing your own reality. And that's kind of been my testimony. I want to start to land this plane here in just a little bit, but I have to ask you this question. A lot of people that are attracted to my book, my message, this podcast, they want more, they feel stuck, they may or may not be in whatever ways. The truth is you're only stuck as you think you are. But I'll maybe ask some questions like, what sets your heart on fire? I know in your book you talk about like, who are you in your most abundant, authentic self? Who is that person? What lights your soul on fire? I'm not shocked, but yet at the same time too, I'm a little surprised as to how many people, like they can't identify anything. You know what I mean? They forget trying to go shoot for the stars. They don't even know what the it is. You know what I mean? Talk to that person. Somebody comes to you and they're like, Craig, I don't even know what my purpose, I don't even know what my thing is. I don't even know what sets my heart on fire, connects to my soul. What's a clue that you could give them where they could start to see this?
That's a big question. Can anybody relate to that? It's okay, guys. You can be vulnerable. Okay. So I related to that for a very long time. It's a process, which doesn't excite a lot of people. But even just take an inventory on what do you love? What has you jazzed? When you're having the most fun, what are you doing? Right? And then consider, what am I good at? What are my skill sets? What makes me unique? Somewhere in there, there's going to be a couple good things to try out. Right? So not everybody's born like, I'm playing for the Yankees, right? I want to be in personal development. I want to be a neuroscientist. Sometimes you have to try some shit. Throw some stuff at the wall. Figure out what sticks and what you feel most aligned to. And look, if you just married the first person you ever dated, how do you even know if that's the one? You have nothing to compare it to.
Sure.
So I think there's something to be said for getting out there and trying new things. And so if you don't exactly know, you know what, I think I'm in the wrong career, I hate Mondays, I don't like what I'm doing. Okay, so what else are you willing to try? Can you put yourself out there? Can you pick up a hobby? So you'll start to try some things and then something will feel aligned. You'll get an energetic buy-in. And then let's run with that.
I've always heard, what I hear you saying is take action. Just do something. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Just try something.
Yeah.
And I've heard that clarity will always follow action. I love that saying, 'cause it's true.
That's a good one. Did I say that?
No. I would give you credit. I don't think so.
Because here's the thing. A lot of people, especially that study a lot of personal development, they're sitting here like, I'm going to pray. I'm just going to get the clarity. But as I like to always share, even God at some point said to Moses, all right, stop praying and get moving.
That's right.
You have to try some stuff.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
being here, just to be clear, is amazing. You guys are going to get a nugget, a download, something's going to come through, you're going to make a connection, 100%. But then where I see most people not follow through is the lack of execution after something like this. How many of you guys are committed to execute after today? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Beautiful.
I love that. A couple of quick hitters here, and we'll put a
Love
pin in
quick
it. Fair
hitters.
enough. What is a belief that you had to delete?
How many do you want? I'm not great with money. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Not good with money. Follow up, just quick follow up on that one. Then how does somebody go about deleting a non-truth?
Establishing, first and foremost, what is actually the truth and what's been true for you. There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
Right? So if there's two truths happening in this room right now, that is that everyone in here is having an experience, everybody's existing, everything else has been true to us. And we can change what's true to us. Right? So, for example, for someone that maybe is not making millions of dollars yet or doesn't think they're good with money, instead of saying, I'm not good with money, saying, I'm about to get really excited about growing my ability to make more money. What if you were to just make that your truth?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's a different consciousness. So,
I love that. Number 2, if you could install one new program into everyone's mind listening and in this crowd, what would it be?
remember who you really are, which is unlimited.
Last one, you ready?
I'm ready.
What still blows your mind about human potential?
You. When I see what you're doing and how bought in you are and how your ability to receive and then take action and watch what you're doing through me, through you and other people, and when you get those texts like from your students that I just had a major breakthrough and how that lights you up and then it lights me up and it lights my teacher up. It's just the most beautiful thing and it never seems to amaze me. The difference is you gotta have the guts to go after your potential.
Have I mentioned I love you?
I love you too.
Give it up for Craig Siegel, everybody.
We're good? That was great.
I try to end on time. You good? Yeah.
But hold on a second. We're not done yet.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Oh.
What are you most jazzed about right now?
Put me on the spot here, brother.
That's what we do.
First of all, like being here is a big stretch for me. And I'm learning that I shouldn't say you. I'm learning that I work best when I'm like a year ahead. You know, here I am, this is where I am today. This is where I am. But in my mind and what I'm doing and what I'm throwing myself into is actually a year ahead. I'm always a year ahead, right? And so it's like, what would Jared 2026 be doing right now? Would he say yes to this? Who would he reach out to? What kind of audacious thoughts and beliefs and certainty would he have today? Because you know this, if I look at my calendar, my ego comes right in and then logic starts to overplay right away, right? Now it just does it for a moment. Before it used to do it for entire seasons, right? So what I'm most excited about is just more of this. It's more of connecting with great people, having opportunities to share. This is what I wanted. When I was suffering in a cubicle, suffering in an office, not doing the things that light my soul on fire, and getting off of work and literally shaking, and I'd say to my wife, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And it's not that the job was bad, but I was like, you know what lights my soul up on fire? Doing X, Y, and Z. I need to engineer my life around that, and that. And as I've started to step into that, it started to actually come to fruition. And it's like, holy cow. And now all of a sudden you see these bumps in the road and now life becomes the chess match. A big one. It's not in the book because it happened right after the book. I got my identity stolen 2 weeks after I launched my book. Craig was the first guy in my ear after I got my identity stolen. I was completely panicked. I was scared out of my mind.
Tell them what you mean by identity stolen.
I quit my job in July of last year. I have 4 kids, almost 47 years old, 4 kids. I don't have a backup plan. I am the backup plan.
Shout out to No Plan B, baby.
So I walk into being self-employed for the first time in my life. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and a business owner doing this. I committed to writing a book. Craig endorsed it. He was there with me with a pod with Sal and Russ Rogers. So you guys know Russ Rogers. And they helped me get that book written and launched. And I threw everything at that book launch, everything. Come out of that book launch with a massive wave of momentum. Like this is what we want, right? 2 weeks later, I wake up to a Facebook hack. By 10 a.m. they had my identity. By 4 p.m. they were in my bank accounts. By 5 p.m. my social medias were so badly compromised they were all gone.
Is that pressure or stress?
I don't know what the hell it was, but it was scary as hell. I don't want to over dramatize it. It was the scariest day of my life. I spent from 5 to 10 p.m. on the phone trying to close down bank accounts and credit cards, and meanwhile my phone is just going fraud alert, fraud alert, fraud alert, and it was like, it was out of control. I didn't sleep at all that night. I texted him at like 5 a.m. Greg, you got 30 seconds, call me. Sure enough, by golly, flipping calls me. First thing he says, how you doing? I go, not good. And then he says this. He goes, Jared, this is going to be the best thing that ever happens to you. And I was like, what? He goes, this is going to be the best thing that ever happens to you. Be flattered by your challenges. What an opportunity. He goes, don't panic. Don't fight. Don't try to get it back. Because I was like, nah, I'm pissed, right? I'm going to go on my wife's Facebook. I'm going to try to find a lawyer coming after these people. And he goes, don't do any of that. He's like, look, you don't have any social media. Spend some time with your kids. Pour into your wife. And I was like, what? And you know what? Here's the deal. And I've told you this. I didn't believe him. No, let me rephrase that. I didn't believe it, but I believed him. You know what I'm saying? And sure enough, I didn't do anything. I sat. And if you live in Minnesota in December, it's dark. And it was cold. And you know what I did? I sat. I just sat in it. I didn't have to make social media posts. I just reached out to the people in my network. I started just saying, hey, I'm doing this. How can I help? And so I went into January actually having a really big January. What was interesting is that during that time, December was such a uncertain month, but I had him in my ear saying, believe, believe, believe. At the end of the year, I actually, before we had chatted, I had put on my calendar to give a big end of the year gift away. The next week on this call.
You mean like donation?
Yeah.
Like tithing?
Yep. The next week on the call, he says, you know, I really want to encourage you guys to give a big end of the year gift. I was like, damn. I had it on the calendar. And of course, I didn't do it when the date came up. I waited until New Year's Eve day. I did not sleep the night before. Because I was
Can you picture him?
Yeah.
Biting his nails?
You know what I did at 3 o'clock in the morning, not sleeping? I was like, how much money did I make this month or make this year? I hope it wasn't a lot. I hope it wasn't a lot. Because I had spent it all on building my business. And in my mind, God gave me an amount to give, and I looked at how much I had made and how much I had spent, and there was this much left over, and guess what? It was the exact same amount. And I was like, you mean I'm supposed to write out a check that represents everything? And on that call, I was broken. I had to take the call in my car because I was a weeping mess on the call. And we got off the call, and he says, Jared, you give it with a giving mentality, you getting rid of that to open up the door for more. I got off that call and I raced to this organization, wrote the check, went home and just napped for like 6 hours. Right? January, biggest month of my life.
Repeat that.
So, hold on. And I'm not talking just financial. I'm talking people, opportunities coming at me, right? February, biggest month of my life. March, biggest month of my life. At the beginning of the year, I had no income on the books for April. None. We just got done with April. April went 1.5x my biggest month to date. It was even that much bigger. May, monster. I got 2 speaking engagements yesterday. While we're here, I'm like, ding, right? So that's a testament to the power of the technology that you're playing with.
I'm going to give you $1 million to speak next week.
There we go. But you know, that's the power in these concepts, right? Like, it's not, you know, and again, Craig was challenging me. He's like, make sure you tithe. I was like, absolutely. Make sure you do it with the right consciousness. Absolutely. It was just such an honor. It was an honor. I love that word honor. What an honor. What an honor to be here. What an honor to give. What an honor to serve. What an honor to shine. And so when you take that, when you put on that crown, man, it's just so exciting. And again, you guys have known me for an hour. Dude, I wasn't like this. This wasn't me maybe even a year ago. Sure as hell not 3 years ago. I was desperate and just panicking all the time. So I'm so proud of you guys for being here, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to share the stage with you, brother.
How about this guy, huh? Love you, buddy. Love you, man. So proud of this guy. And guys, just to be clear, it's not like a conference on tithing, but I think there's something to be said about putting stuff out there with a different consciousness and being open to what might happen.